grandfather of online trade in Uganda, Kazoba Kawamara. Let's give him a round of applause, our guest for the day. Now, is there anything I missed out, first of all, in the introduction and the titles?
I think there's more than they should.
Yes, briefly, for those of you who may not know who you are, you can just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. All right. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here today. And more especially that so many people are out on a public holiday, which happens to be on a Friday. So it shows the commitment of the members of this Founders Club and this hub as well. My name is Ron Kawamara, and I love tech. So I have been in tech for the last 15 years, from right out of university. I've been working with tech companies. My first job was working with a company called People Connect in the San Francisco Bay Area. And this company was working with startups that were looking for developers, engineers, or very expensive talent that they could not afford. And rather than paying them in salaries, they would pay them in equity, in stock options. So it was a very cool, innovative way of getting talent. Was a very innovative way of getting talent in. So that's how I got into the space. And then after grad school, I came back to Kampala, where we started. So I don't know if you remember, but back for those who were here back in the day, there was something called Hello Food. And so Hello Food later became Jumia Food, but our goal was very basic, to get groceries and food at your fingertips, and the business was very exciting. So I've been with Jumia 10 years as CEO, managed Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda. Right now, I'm running a holding company, and we start or we buy companies and we build them to last. So we're invested in logistics, in security, we invested in fintech and green tech, we invested in microfinance, we invested in hospitality and properties. Some of the hospitalities I might know, we have some of our brands like the Patio Bella, the Maze, for those who happen, the Villa. And so we're a group of about 12 restaurants. And so that's what we do. We're going back actually still in tech. And so in about 2 weeks, we're launching another tech business. We've been able to raise a little bit of some capital to get back. As you're aware, one or two big players may have left the market. So we are filling that gap. So it's good to be here with you guys, and I see some familiar faces. I look forward to this discussion. Thanks.
Wow, thank you very much. So in Uganda, most people become entrepreneurs, definitely not by choice, since the job market is not really enough to absorb all of the graduates who leave university. So when and why did you decide to become an entrepreneur intentionally, regardless of being able to get a full-time network position?
Well, I think it's perhaps a misconception. The notion that entrepreneurs because of no choice, I don't agree with that. I believe that successful entrepreneurs are people who have a strong appetite for risk, who have a strong bias for getting things done. So they're impatient with being an employee, and so it's a specific mindset of an entrepreneur. It's not somebody who has failed to get a job. Those who have failed to get jobs become unemployed. and those who become entrepreneurs are people who have a specific mindset. So I mean, I would say it's the same for me. So when I was in grad school, I had worked for a couple years. So in grad school, and so I applied to this UN Young Professionals program. So we had just graduated with a degree in economics from Oxford, and very nice. We were all excited, and we all applied. One of the guys was Alistair from Safe Border, and I got placed in New York, and but my desire was not to be an employee. My desire was not to sit in a cubicle and go for happy hour. I am, I work long hours. I work 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. I like deciding what to do. But I had been away for about 12 years, away from Uganda, so I wanted to be back. But I didn't have an entry point. And from my experience, as I told you, working with these companies called People Connect, I had fallen in love with entrepreneurship. I had seen all these young kids that were rolling out solutions. And some of them were failing, but some of them were succeeding. But the notion that my calling could be designing solutions that actually have an impact, that basically somebody out there can find important to use. It was not even the money at the point, is that somebody can find my creation exciting. And so the question is, what would that be? And so I came to Kampala. I was dining out. I was meeting friends. And every time I asked, for takeaway, this is around 2011. And there was nobody, basically restaurants had nothing to give me. They would maybe go buy a Kavera and put it together. And then if you sent your border to get you something at the time, there was no takeaway happening. And then I remembered there was a company called Just Eat. Just Eat was a company in the UK. And as a student, studying late and all, it was very convenient to getting things in. And I was becoming more and more convinced that in a market that is hyper saturated with logistics, hyper saturated with transport options, that has a high density of people, that tech could play a role in how we interact with these businesses. That's how we started our first business. And when we started this, to be honest, I thought that the likelihood this would work, because at this time there was not a single online business happening. That's before Jumia, before all these companies. I thought that it's something worth trying, that it would give me something to try in the market, something to do, and maybe the excitement would go away. I didn't believe in it. I didn't think that Ugandans would jump on something, but there was this spirit, this drive of an entrepreneur that you want to test it for yourself, that whether it works or not. I remember we thought that we'd just design a website, put up menus of supermarkets, menus of restaurants, and Ugandans would go there and just buy. Why not? The menu is live. And we built a very nice website. But we found that actually 95 or even 99% of all Ugandans consume their internet through the phone. Actually, nobody had laptops. So we had spent all our building a nice website that nobody was using, nobody could use. So we went back and had to build something for the handset, for the phone. So we thought we had obviously done something good. But then now we go to the restaurants, the supermarkets, and we said, okay, but we've designed this beautiful application that's going to help you bring you business. And so we thought that the restaurants would be excited, that we are giving you incremental business, customers you never had. What we found is that the restaurants, the supermarkets, none of them had a way were calculating their margins accurately. What we found is that if this restaurant in this corner was charging chicken and chips at 10,000 shillings, the guy across the street would price their products at 8,000 shillings. So the whole city was made up of prices that have just been made up. And of the 80% of the restaurants I interacted with, almost all of them were making losses. But they didn't realize because it's a cash flow business. So now I remember I thought I would just do a website and restaurants would be excited. We had them to teach, how do you cost a menu? How do you price your products? And then after that, you need to give me 25%. Well, it was quite difficult. But the real business proposition is the ability that I had to make to teach them how to cost their products and then to convince them to pay me a portion of it to bring them incremental business. Then, for those who agreed, and there were very few, I thought, man, if I bring you business, you'll find a way to execute the business. You'll be able to deliver the product to the consumer. Well, I was wrong again. No one had the ability to package the food. And so now I had to go to China to import packaging materials, right? Bring in the materials, give them the foils and all this nice fancy. They're not actually fancy, but they were cheap and decent. Now, remember, my thought is that I would build a website and that's the business. Now I'm educating the restaurant and the supermarkets about their margins and their pricing. Now I'm importing packaging materials for them. I'm now an importer, bona fide importer. But that was not enough. I thought they would be able to deliver, but they didn't have the delivery. At best they would call random border. There was no way to track where they were. So we were forced to build our own logistics systems, right? Get our own borders, we hire them, train them, give them uniforms, give them boxes. But then customers get tired that you've delivered yesterday and you've come back today. You're still asking me, are you still behind the same mango tree? Where are you? As you know very well, Kampala is not mapped very well. Now, remember, this is 2011. So a few things have changed. And so we had to design our own navigation tool. We call it Urban Ninja. Now, Urban Ninja just allowed us that if we came to you once, we would ping you on our GPS that the next guy will be able to know, okay, this is... Now, if you moved, we wouldn't know that you moved. It was very rudimentary. So if you ordered from Bugolobi today and tomorrow you ordered from Bukoto, we think in Bugolobi and but it worked for a bit. So we were resolving several challenges. Now, remember, I thought the business would be just a menu on their website. Now I'm building logistics systems and, to be able... For me, why this story is important is that, number one, as entrepreneurs, we have to be comfortable with the unknown. Right? What you think you know is not what it is. Right? I was wrong almost every step of the way. I thought these guys, the restaurant owners, I thought the supermarket owners knew their business, that they would understand my proposition. They didn't. I thought that customers would just use the website. They couldn't. And then, of course, we get into payment systems. How do you bring in cash? Back to you. How do you keep it safe? And today, the ecosystem of fintech is massive. You don't have to invent anything. In 2011, there was nothing. There was not a single company that was taking payments online. Not MTL, not Airtel, no bank was doing it. So, you have to be comfortable with the unknown. You get things wrong. And Another lesson I think for me is that your ability to find solution to all those difficulties or frictions is your value proposition as a business, right? Because if all those things were present, you don't have a business. Right? So my business became my ability to plug all those gaps and have a seamless proposition for customers. And obviously later the business grew and Ugandans were early adopters. Ugandans are very tech savvy, they want to try new things. And then we'll talk later, but we also hit a ceiling very quickly. We've got all the early adopters, and the question is, after you get to all the early adopters, how do you get the second wave and the third wave, and you hit critical mass? Yes.
Thank you very much. That actually answers the next question of the experience working with Jumia. Something that I wanted to touch on was when you started Hello Food, the transition to Jumia, was that a merger and acquisition of Jumia Uganda and Hello Food? Was that a rebranding? What was the case then?
So what we had before, we called it Hello Food, is what we started. When we were here, we were approached by an investment, I would call it startup investment group called Rocket Internet. Well, we don't have a very good reputation in Europe. They are known for getting working models, right, and bring them to emerging markets. So basically it's a copy and paste. And so for those who had already started, were quickly swept up with a wave of cash, and now we moved from being entrepreneurs to being employees. And so it worked, right? We got good preferential shares and got some cash. Remember, I'm 24 here, right? So everything was exciting. But so once we had a Rocket Internet, we got a rocket. Absolutely, it was a crazy thing from Hello Food to Jumia. They exited, and so a lot of lessons, right? I think entrepreneurs, you face these things on your journey whereby when you visually gets on a rocket, on someone else's rocket, I'd never worked with Germans, until this. Then we also got to work a lot with the French, a lot of experiences that I gained working with people who have a very, very aggressive approach to building business, right? Now, it's not the only way. I think that out of the models we ran on the Rocket Internet, maybe out of the 10 we tried, maybe only 2 survived, right? About two survived. And so is it the right approach? I don't know. Maybe it's the right approach. You try and then you kill some, but that's for another day.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, a question that I think some of the founders may have here: when you start your business, your baby, you grow it, at the point of maybe partnership, or like you said, Rocket Internet Group approaching. Because of confidentiality, of course, you can share some information, I presume. But could you give us like 2 or 3 metrics that Hello Food had at that time to become appetizing for Rocket Internet Group to be like, okay, let's approach them and try and work something out with them? Could be the number of listed restaurants, or revenue, or the tech stack. What?
Well, I think that things have changed, right? We were at a time whereby what the investors were looking at is not what they're looking at today. Right? Back then, if your model was scalable, if there was ability to hyper grow, the real unit economics didn't matter that much, right? So the business wasn't. When we had it before it became Hello Food and others, we built a business that was lean. We built a business that we could scale in a way within our resources, right? But we also knew that
it was very difficult to go beyond the early adopters with the resources we had. So we needed an injection of capital to be able to upgrade our tech, to be able to upgrade our systems and routines, to be able to hire better people, to be able to reach more areas, to be able to brand better, to build a fully, functional, attractive business. So we knew that, right? And so what we had was a very lean business that was, basically close to break even, but a very small business, right? And for me, number one is that first build a business can stand. If a business cannot stand, it cannot run. So we built a business that could stand, but it was not working fast enough, right? And so that's where investment found us. So we had a business that stood, was working quite slowly, and then with the investment we were able to catapult to a faster gear. But I mean, this has changed. I mean, obviously we raised money in different rounds. It's difficult. It's different for founders today than in 2011 and 2012, right? It's different with founders today than pre-COVID, post-COVID. The game has changed. It's not that you can burn cash and show growth anymore. I mean, they need a clear trajectory that can get you to the green in ways that I'll tell you this: we made every mistake there is to make. If there's in the 10 years, we made a lot of mistakes. And I'm glad that some of those funding models don't exist today because they enabled bad behavior. They built in the consumers bad behaviors. If you're in e-commerce today, if you're in any sort of marketplace aggregation, the consumers who built in Uganda for the last 10 years are consumers who were largely acquired through incentives, were consumers who are more likely to be deal hunters than loyal consumers. And so this market has been destroyed. And whether you speak to our friends at SafeWater or Uber, they're struggling because the early adopters that SafeWater got when they came to this market, that Uber came, where people were built on incentives, not on loyalty to the convenience service. So what happens, you look at those companies in 2018-19, they were making 3-4 times more transactions than they're making today. And the only difference is the tech is better. The difference is that they've removed those incentives. What does that say? That it's better to build a business on solid fundamentals that is sustainable than to build them on these gimmicks that we did over time. That not just me, a lot of the founders and entrepreneurs from 2011, 2012 until 2020, the consumers in this market were built on very, very flimsy judgments.
Yes, you are the youngest, I think, country manager at the age of 25 and 26. Definitely, the rocket ship you're talking about definitely must have been a challenge. What was the biggest mistake in the 10 years at Jumia that you came across? How did you handle it? And why did you leave?
The mistakes are many, one thing about building, especially for those of you who are building tech companies, there's no blueprint for you in this market. Now the ecosystems that are just getting built right now. On our end, we really built that. We go to, whether it's hotels, we built a travel website. We built jobs. We did all these real estate, all the classifieds we built them. We built classifieds for jobs, classifieds for real estate, we build classifieds, you name it, for peer-to-peer. We build fintech, payments. We did logistics that we outsourced, not outsourced, but that we gave out on a B2B basis. And I think maybe our biggest mistake was that we thought that the market is ready for everything that works in the West. Because if you're an entrepreneur, I think, or even an investor, was a lazy trap of replication, right? That I want to replicate, and this is, and this happens in Uganda a lot. We hear that Uganda is the most entrepreneurial country, right? You've heard that. We have the highest per capita of entrepreneurs of any country. But if you were to break that down, you just go to a market, any market, or any street that has shops, which go, what you find is that, yes, we're entrepreneurs, but we're duplicating what everyone else is doing. You find a lady with a store selling bananas and oranges and mangoes and onions and all these things. The guy next door is going to sell the same thing. And so aggregating businesses, but not diversifying the products. And so, yes, we entrepreneurs, but there's a lazy trap to, and it's an easy way, is that if something works, let's try it. If something works in Barra, I'm going to do it in Kampala. If something works in, and so we also fell in the same trap. Even when it came to how we looked at different aspects of our business, how to do our inventory, how to do our logistics design, we were slow to trust our ability to innovate on the ground, right? Look at Uganda as it is. So Uganda is a country of about 50 million now. We're about 49, but by the end of this year we'll be about 50 M. But Kampala at most has about 3 million. So Kampala is less than 3% of Uganda. The next city after Kampala is Gulu, Zarua, Zimbara, Lira. None of them can hit 200,000. All of them are less than 200,000. If you aggregate all the towns and all the cities in Uganda, it's about 20% Ugandans. The other 80% lives in rural areas. Now, what does that mean? It means that it's a very fragmented country. If you're trying to design a business, you're trying to design the logistics system, you're trying to design whatever you're trying to do, you need to make sure that basically it's hard to reach 80% of our people. That's why you don't see a lot of big chain supermarkets surviving in Uganda, because you can build in Kampala, but the Nakumatt cannot survive in Barra. It's less than 200,000 people. Now, if you don't have a mindset that understands that and you're trying to adopt, so I made a lot of mistakes in terms of how I designed logistics, how I designed it. I didn't fully appreciate, how Uganda is, right? And many times our tech, our collections, our remittance systems were not tailored to this. And maybe, but I caught up very fast as well. One of the things that we did was building almost like an agency model. So if I cannot reach 80% of the people through normal logistics, I'm going to use people in these communities who are already well known. So I'm going to go to a place like Roharo and Barara or a place in Gulu. This place will have Mr. John who sells DSTV. And this guy now becomes my agent. This is the guy who's going to do my logistics. This is the guy who's going to do my selling. This is the guy who's going to be responsible for my products. And I'm going to pay him well. So we ended up building a business that had almost 30% of our business coming from people like him. So it's no longer the platform now, because my platform cannot reach somebody who cannot be reached by logistics. But if this guy who has access to more people, because he's in a smaller place, smaller town, he has internet, and above all, he has trust of the community. He has more trust that my application will be able to get. So we built, and then we call them the JForce, and it was built here in Uganda, whereby we moved over from being a tech company. In a sense, 30% of our business no longer but tech, was about trusted people. And we replicated this. So this is more responsible. And I can assure you that when people are incentivized, the goods, the payments found their way into those areas, and the money came back. And so yes, a lot of the mistakes came from not understanding our landscape or appreciating it enough, but also a real opportunity came from the same problem. And why is there an opportunity? Because if Uganda is so fragmented that no town outside of Kampala has more than 200,000 people, right? Within that space. Why is that an opportunity? It means that Woolworth, it means that Game, it means that the big brands, supermarkets will not come to those markets. So if I'm an entrepreneur, that's a great thing, right? If the big guys cannot come in, because it's not big enough. If you're an entrepreneur in whatever business you're in, if the big guys cannot come into those markets, you have a real opportunity to actually make business. So a challenge then becomes an opportunity for an entrepreneur. So I saw it as an opportunity which gave us 30 to 40% of our business that no one could touch. That Hisense could not set up a shop that would compete with us in those small areas. They needed to go through us. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. So 6 years ago, I was pitching one of my first startups to Ron, and he taught me how to ask tough questions during that pitching, and it helped us transition our startup then. So he taught me how to ask tough questions. So I'll go back to that tough question. Why did you leave Jumin?
10 years, I was tired. Tired. If you worked for Rocket Internet, yeah, I was tired. But also I was out of ideas. Totally out. There was nothing I had not tried in 10 years. And so, in my view, so I left in 22. Yes. I should have left in 2019. Yes. I think I was unfair to the business because I realized I had hit that ceiling whereby staying on longer, I think you reach a point whereby you realize that the time has come and when is the right time to go. But on the other hand, you care so much for the business, and maybe you're trapped in a way that no one can do it the way you can. And you've started the business, you've been with the business from the beginning, you've hired everybody, and you have a responsibility to them. I was always protective of Uganda and the countries I managed, because I had seen what happens, that as soon as a manager like myself left, then I was being a European manager immediately and being good. And I always felt a responsibility to hang on. I think I hung on too long. Absolutely. I think, those 2 years would have been better if I had a new manager. But the time had come for me. And for me, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've started my businesses in security, in hospitality, that had grown quite a bit. And I remember at one point, and this is where an entrepreneur with a junior was a shareholder, as one of the founders on the ground, and I exercised a lot of my stocks, but I cared about the business. On the other hand, I reached a point at one point whereby, Jimmy, I was taking 99% of my work time, my day job, but in terms of my personal income, maybe I was bringing about 5%. And so I also had to be a little bit selfish, right? That yes, it's important, and I enjoy to lead the business, but on the other hand, I was not at my desk, and two, I was basically devoting time to a business that was not where I was getting my real income.
Okay, so I think that's going to bring us into your current holding group, the Gamara Group, which I think you started a little bit before you immediately left Jumia.
No, 7 years before.
So,
yes, so some of them we had started 7 years, depending on the business, but also we had started well before.
okay, so my question is definitely the inspiration behind Gamara, you being an entrepreneur. What's the progress been in the Gamara Group as of now? I think you have a portfolio of around 18 companies. The main question that I wanted to ask is the focus of the companies or businesses that Gamara is merging or acquired. Are they more tending to the traditional business valuation side, or more of the, for lack of a better word, startup tech valuation side, right? Because like you said, there's a challenge within the founders community that I'm wanting to see or understand. With us entrepreneurs, to pitch, let's say, the businesses to actual potential investors, they mostly understand, of course, the traditional sense of a business. Profits, gross profit margins, EBITDA, those things. But those are like the tech founder side, have this Silicon Valley valuation and things like that. So where does Gamara fit in and your focus? And what does you have?
Well, I think that the businesses that interest me are those that fall within my competence. And my competence, maybe it's two things. I think I know how to build a brand, and I know how to build systems and processes. That's it. And perhaps to manage people. So and basically that allows you to be able to do a little bit of many things. But I think what maybe those of us who have come from this stakes space forget is that at the core, business is what, consumers, the people, the workers, the product, and the systems and the routines that you have, right? And what we try to do through innovation, the people here is basically is innovate. But what is innovation? And one is apply efficiency using tech, aggregate, whether it's supply, whether it's demand, whether it's systems aggregated so it becomes faster and better. And when you take that mindset to any business, I think most of us look at entrepreneurship perhaps or innovation basically as something limited to very few spaces. And yet, and I was one of those people, and yet in whatever sector you're looking at in Uganda, whether it's transport, whether it's logistics, whether it's hospitality, whether it's security, whether it's in microfinance, whatever you call as traditional, everything actually requires your innovation. What I brought to restaurants and properties, what I brought to security companies what I've brought to logistics companies is my ability to organize, to implement processes and routines, and in some areas, technology. And, as a result, I can tell you without any doubt that I think that I'm able to get better efficiency, better margins on a product, on my cost of goods I sell in the restaurant than anyone can. Because I measure everything. I can tell you how many grams of onions I put in a sandwich. I can tell you how many grams of pickles I put in a bag. I have that in my head, and my staff knows it, and we're obsessed by it, right? And if something does not hit a specific threshold of our codes, it's crazy. So we're obsessed with it, and therefore I can maybe lean out that extra 10% from the business that will give me an edge so that I can accelerate faster and opening up a new branch, because I track everything. And of the view that you cannot grow what you don't track, you cannot measure what you don't measure, you can't grow it. And my obsession of measuring things, that I find the owner of the restaurant or this, and I know how many grams are in the sandwich, and how many milligrams of syrup goes in a milkshake, and I measure that. So don't tell me that's traditional business. No, it's business that needs innovation. And it's the same thing that we do with security, how we deploy people, or we kind of tech we use to deploy, whether it's a motorcycle or a truck, right? How you assess the risk in terms of deploying the armed and unarmed. And so my view is that whatever space you want to be in, it needs innovation. So don't fall in the trap that don't do traditional business. No, traditional business needs you more, actually. Yeah. So what do I do things that I have competence in, that if I can measure it, I can make money on it. Yeah.
Okay. So that's, I think, every industry has something to definitely measure. As we wrap up this session, for those entrepreneurs that maybe are here now that you transitioned from an executive in the startup tech space into an investor, so you understand the context of Africa and Uganda actually much better, how can they pitch their businesses, let's say to the Gamara Group, maybe? What do you look for in terms of, is it a certain minimum annual revenue, or for those that would like to pitch their ideas, or what stages would you consider at all, or is there a fund, or what's the process behind Gamara, the companies they look towards acquiring or merging with, for those that may have the matrix or criteria to try and apply?
Well, on our end, I'll say that how we gauge the opportunity of investment. I look for bad companies and good companies, right? The bad companies are the best. So one of the companies we acquired as a security company. You might know the names, I won't say it. It's one of the oldest security companies.
Maybe clients.
Exactly. And so if you find a company that has a guard force of 500, has armory of 2,000 guns, has staff of about maybe 38 or 40, but should be making, the quick math, should make X amount, have a collection rate of maybe 85%, and then you find that it's because of historical things, it's you are in air trouble, it's paying this NSSF, it's behind, and guns are lost, people are killed, you name it, and as a consequence, the company is run in crisis. It's there, but it's not making money. And if you know how dynamic, and so today, I think security is the second biggest employer in Uganda. The business of insecurity is massive. Now, on paper, when you look, it's a bad company, right? I'm very excited about such a company, right? Because it's exactly what my experience with. And so what looks bad and it's not making money for the directors, the owners, I am very happy to come and take it up. The other company I like is obviously a company that is standing up, is walking and not running, right? So we have a founder who has a very good business model, who has tested all the key aspects of the business, right? Has tested the user proposition, has tested very well their own proposition for the founder, has very good scalability, and basically the testing part is done, but it needs to run. But the running also right now must have the end of the runway. However, the runway is also within range. I'm not one of those people who are looking to build companies for valuation. I'm looking to build companies that have a limited scale but have a midterm opportunity to be self-sustainable. And then what is that? To be honest, I'm looking at 2 years. The company is not, in this landscape of today. We have a small, a little bit private equity component, but it's mainly focused on green tech, and we want to expand it further. We have a very limited runway of what we can do. So we tend to look at companies that are working when we need to run. But above all, everyone would say this, it's not just a business, it's the people behind the business. As you know, one of the big tech companies leaving the market. So we're working right now to build a business that can get those customers who don't have the service, but not just get those customers, actually build a better business that was there. And to do that, I've had to look for practitioners in the space. Right? I've had to look for people that I can work with, people who have the functional experience, people who have that zeal and the desire and strong bias for execution. I've looked at people who can help me do product management, because that's not my type. And I've also looked at myself and others who can bring in the finance. And because we put all these people together, we've been able to attract a little bit of more financial support for his good channel. So maybe the lesson from my last 2 months of this is that the characters, who's in the soup also helps give that push. And so when you come into pitch, it's who are the characters, right, in the movie script, above what we discussed about the business components and we tested.
Okay. So they approach you directly, websites, email, you have someone in the Amara group that deals with, because there are very many people that have their pitches ready, that are practicing them in before you came in, that's just waiting for that email address, and they, edit a little bit here and there.
I think the best way for me always on two fronts, whether it's supporting people to get investment, right? Helping people avoid the pitfalls that I have been through, or seeing opportunities to invest or collaborate is always of interest to me. And so I will put my email behind, and we'll take it from there.
Hey, a round of applause. That doesn't come easy in Uganda. Yes, as we wrap up this session, so people want to know, what do you do in your free time? Business aside, when you're not working 90 hours plus a week in entrepreneurship, what do you do? What are you going to do?
Well, it's a wish. I have very good please don't do this because I don't have very good healthy habits. And this year is better. But historically, I overburned out, and then my way of I come from I guess a history of work hard, play hard. But once you get to my age, now I've gone 9 months of being alcohol free,
Congratulations.
and it has worked.
On how many bars? It's a big accomplishment. It's really.
So, because I'm saying this because it's tough being in our shoes entrepreneurs. It's hard. And as a consequence, drinking is very, it's a way that you feel, you know that, so we drink when things are tough, and we drink when things also go well. I can tell you the same thing in interviews, whether you go to Nairobi or Lagos, I don't understand why you work yourself to the ground and you drink yourself to the ground. And then Monday you're as tired as Friday. And so, but once you get older, very, very important. Now I can share, now at least I'm able to sleep inside. I take off Sundays now, stay home with my wife and my daughter. And that is very new to me. But I've made another mistake.
That answers the question. When the founders group asking if he's married, I think the question has been answered.
Yeah. So, but now you see, I told you about opening another startup. Last 1 month has been like again 16 hours a day and 7 days a week. But it's very, very important that and I know that working long hours should not, it's not a solution, it's not a badge of honor, by the way. It's a failure of planning, it's a failure of delegation, it's a failure of collaboration, it's a failure of it's procrastination at its worst. And so my hope now is that this year, even with this project that I'm able to find space, and I hope that all of you also find space for yourselves, and rest and relax. I'm seeing a lot of people here who I know are going straight to the back.
No of us from the villa, no of us from.
Yes.
It'd be like Founders Lounge today, the villa, discounts on me, password, Kamara.
Yes, so please, let's relax today.
Thank you very much. As we end this session, a round of applause for Ron. Address as we enter the next session, Q&A. I'd like to invite my co-host Susan to come and take up the moment.
We're going to go through. I'm going to give my audience time to ask you whatever they want to ask. He asked about the marriage part. I know few people will want to know that. Maybe you're going to have hands up and see what to ask. Please let's not over ask a lot of long questions. Let it be at least small but pickable. Thank you. Okay. We do woman, man. Okay.
Thank you very much. I am humbled to ask the first question to Ron. The last time we had a meeting, I think is 7 years ago or 6, 7 years ago. My name is Kenneth Tracy J. I am the CEO and founder of TechBuzz, the best co-working space in Africa, at GSK of course. I have two questions. One is where you mentioned something that businesses in Uganda are built, most tech businesses are built on loyalty and convenience.
No, they're built on incentivization rather than on real stickiness of convenience or value proposition, right?
Yeah, so I want that you maybe throw more light on how then best must maybe a tech company in Uganda acquire more loyal customers without that incentivization. Then my second one, and the usual one, is what is that one thing you wouldn't have done the same way, just as you did when you were, young CEO at June. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. Everyone loves to learn from mistakes. We need to know which mistakes are those.
So I think I've said enough mistakes. But I mean, I think one of the things that we've learned in the last 10 years is that companies that have been built not on the stickiness of the proposition, but rather on incentives, have not survived. And we need incentives, of course, but customers want value. Customers don't want incentives, right? Incentives attract deal hunters, they don't attract customers. And however, incentives have a place, right? And especially in mature markets, that if you have a critical mass of adopters and you have competition, it makes sense to incentivize consumers to try your service. However, if we're talking about the Uganda startup scene whereby everything is at an early stage, I'd rather focus on building a sound proposition to consumers and cost it at the right value than investing my early resources on incentivizing consumers. Because we've seen that it's very difficult to sustain, and the cohorts you get, I mean, I have so many examples that I have done in the travel business, that I've done in the classifieds, and has failed for me. And I know many of my friends who are still in the same. If I had my friends at Safe Border here today, they would say the same. They learned too late, maybe not too late, but much later, that start with the right benchmark and really offer a good service.
In tech, in my experience is that it's not even, if you go to the best performing stuff, they're not the cheapest. I mean, they're not even the first, and you will remember very, very well, MySpace, which was here for Facebook. You remember BlackBerry, right? Which was there before Samsung and Apple and all those things. And so many. And even in Uganda, there's so many examples I don't want to use. Companies that came, that invested a lot in incentives. But for me, it's not that you are fast or you have critical mass, it's about, and it's not about being fast, it's about being the best. That the companies that are the best will win. It's not about being fast or even being the cheapest, right? Because if it was about being the cheapest, BlackBerry is much cheaper than the iPhone. BlackBerry is cheaper than an iPhone. And it was fast. Had a whole closed user system, right? So it's about being the best. So rather than focusing on being incentivizing or being the cheapest, focus on being the best. Mistakes up to, I mentioned a lot of my mistakes. I think one of them I should have left in 2019.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Then we have a lady. Do I have any lady around? I don't have any lady to look at me. then I'll definitely take a ride, grab a lady, we can go to us. Okay, thank you. Mistakes are human, like we all make mistakes. But those achievements and those moments be like, I have done this, and for one, I have done it, and I would sit back and say, yes, I did it. What is that one moment?
Well, I think that when I look back, I think I left Uganda when I was 17, and I went to study, and but I didn't just go to study like a normal person. I didn't have a school I was going to, so I was excited that I was going to America, very excited, and so. And I was going, my uncle was going to school in America, so he was in a state called Colorado. But as I was planning to go, he comes back. And I'm thinking that is, and he told me like a friend would host me, and so I went, but he was not able to come back to the US. And, so I was alone and managed, obviously, it's a long story. We'll take all that to talk about, but yeah, eventually I would say that I went through quite a lot, as a young person, as a 17-year-old alone. I moved to California. I saw hard times. I've been without a home. I've gone to bed hungry more than I can count. I can smell. I can remember not having what to eat. I remember one time I didn't have what to eat, and I asked somebody to give me $5, and they did. So I was very happy. So it was around 10 p.m. I walked all the way to McDonald's, and it was closed, but the drive-thru was open. So I walked to the drive-thru, and they refused to serve me because you have to be in the vehicle. I had walked about 3 kilometers to go get food, and I had not eaten the whole day. And I had to walk back another 3 kilometers, sleep without eating. And I remember, saying, God, whatever. And so, I guess I'm so happy that I came through, that I was able to go back to school. And when I went to school, I remember the first job I got was at, it was called FedEx Kinko's. The Kinko's is more like a ship and print center. And I worked there for 3 years with no chance of going to school. And I remember when I would see kids coming in with their parents to copy their work, I would basically go to the bathroom and cry. But I didn't know whether I would ever have a chance to go to school. I said, God, if I get a chance to go to school, I will make sure that I honor you with this education. And so I remember coming from not having a place to sleep, and so I went to a community college. Community college is where you go if you've not finished high school or you want to have an opportunity to bridge the gap. So I went to a community college, and I did quite well. I got accepted to one of the better schools called the University of California, Berkeley. And I was driven by the notion that I wanted to show that this kid who came from nothing could do as well in class. And thank God, I did well and graduated top of my class. But what drove me was always, and what drives me today, is always actually the notion that you could still smell and feel and taste that life, that anything could be taken away. It could go away, it could be taken away. That I didn't belong in that school. And so for me, I would go in the classroom at the beginning of the semester and tell myself that I am as good as anyone in this room. And I would spend the whole semester just trying to prove that I am as good as, because in my mind I had reached somewhere that, not having a home and not eating, that I needed something to validate that I was human, that I was, and trust me, as a teenager in the US, in Los Angeles, it's not very easy, because you get very nice questions about how you came, whether, part of Africa, whether you're a refugee or not. And so all those things obviously, and I remember in the community college I went to, so I was asked which options I should take. The counselor was a very nice lady. She gave me the options. All of them were, the state university, California State University, and I said, we don't want you to overshoot. We appreciate your mission, but we need to be realistic. And all the schools I wanted to get into, they didn't give me those options. But I applied anyways. And I got in. I got in all the schools I applied. Eventually got a job, and went to grad school. And creating business for me, and even today, somebody asked me, why do you have strong desire to keep creating? For me, it's the fear that it could still go away. And I had this imposter syndrome even as a senior or junior. I always felt one day they would find out I'm just not as good. They would find out that he was lucky, and that drove me to work harder than anyone else in my position at the time. And today it drives me to make sure that this doesn't fall, and this, but I am excited that I'm still here. Yeah. So there you go.
So if you're almost losing it, don't lose it. Today you might sleep hungry, and tomorrow you become your role model. Let me try.
Hi, my name is Tusi, and I happen to be one of the co-founders from the Zenji Vendor, but also I run a startup called Seluna, and students still promote, maybe I'll reach out to you. So the question I have is a simple one. How do you separate the noise from the signal that forms your interest, or where you should focus your interest?
I'm not very good at that. I think that I'm learning how to say no to good ideas. Maybe because I have ADHD, so I'm very impulsive. And maybe when we started out, it was a very good asset that I was impulsive, but I would try things, right? But when you begin to scale, you need to be a little bit more disciplined, right? And so I was not very good at discerning between noise and signal. I would run for both. But I was very fortunate that I had people and friends and colleagues who actually were much more. And even now in my organization, we have a very good CFO who was a very good, I'm the bullish one. I'm the one who believes that we can make this, and I said, no, we can't afford it. I don't know whether you need to be perfect at telling the signal and what the signal was? And noise. Maybe sometimes noise is what you need. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Let me try the back end of it. And I think we're taking notes. Let's just need to say, hey, we're taking notes and we're going to implement it.
Maybe one more thing. Do you right away and say, okay, this is working, fintech is the right thing to do, green tech is the right way to go, and maybe people who do that also win, right? They win. Maybe they do very well. Maybe that's a signal, right? But maybe there are those who say, okay, everyone is running this direction, and the other guy is like, I'm gonna look at what they have dropped. If everyone is running this way, but what has everybody not seen? What are they dropped? If the noise is this side, but where there's no noise, maybe where the opportunity is. And as an example, like remember during the oil boom, not the oil boom, but when everybody was going to Weimar and Masindi and buying land and buying quarries and buying all these things because the quarries are going to be used for construction. And I know so many people who bought land, and then Total built a CPU that was nowhere close to where, and everybody lost hundreds of billions of shillings in such. But there are those guys who said, actually, I'm not going to buy land, but I'm going to, take a trip to Niger. I'm going to take a trip to Angola to understand, okay, in the ecosystem.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Samson. I want to thank Ron for the presentation and also meeting him again because it's my hobby in primary. Yes, but I want to ask you a question concerning the people. What is the importance of the people or the team that you work with in building a business? Because as a BDS consultant, I've had issues with companies, especially some of the challenges I find is people. I always judge it to be maybe they don't have the right people or they don't have a board. Maybe you can relate it somehow to, is it really important to have a board and the team that actually executes the work? Thank you.
And when can we have the board? Having the board.
Well, my view is that there's never anything wrong with the people. The people are okay. It's you, the founder, the business owner, and the culture. But the people are okay. And because we cannot reinvent people, right? No. We cannot create people, we can create culture. And we can hire the right people. And so it's never people. I say this because when we started, 2011, it wasn't that you could go around and find somebody who can build the right code in Uganda, or somebody who could be a good commercial negotiator, do merchandising for your products. We even do digital marketing today. So many people have done digital marketing. You can, but 2011 there was no digital marketing expert, so we had to get people and train them in these skills. And so I can vouch that it's my experience, it's not the people, that even the people without the skills can get the skills and they can build a business. But very often, because we overstretched, overworked, desperate, inexperienced, and we put together a collection of people that are not able to execute, and then typically it's the culture that is the problem. But the people are fine. People, I can't imagine today the ecosystem has become better for talent. It's still difficult to find the right fit, but people are there, and we're less patient with people. And I think we need to be more patient with people and less with our businesses and our culture and our strategy, right? And if we apply a little bit more patience with people, we'll see that it works out. When you apply patience, training, coaching, and support, then people come through, right? We tend to panic, and because you can't change a business, and because you can't blame the business and the business model and this and margins, and we blame people very fast, and then even people who would be good never get the chance. A board is important, but first the business, build a solid business, right? And when you have a solid business built on the right principles, then the next level is always governance, continuity, right? Credibility, and then beginning to challenge your own ability, your own, at some, and the entrepreneurs, we're wired to think that we have these answers, that we're the best, but we're not, right? So one of the ways to counteract that is good governance systems. But first, the most important is a good business, right?
Taking that seriously.
Thank you very much. Well, my name is Jaffa. I run a company that's called Tour Plans, a startup really. Tour Plan. We're building a marketplace for tours, travel, hospitality experiences, and stays. So my question really is to pick your insight because I know at some point you had Jumia Travel as well, and then I also know that was the first section with this that was thrown out. You passed it on to TravelSet. So
It was not the first.
okay, what I said, what among the first, like the
Yes.
early ones. Yeah. So what was your experience then, and do you have any insight that you can share, especially now that you're actually back into the hospitality sector with your chain of businesses? Thank you.
Travel business. It's it's in my view, it's borderline a mafia business. So I'll tell you this. So we started this travel business whereby we were offering, basically you can book hotels, you can book flights, you can book lodges. Now, here's the challenge that we faced. That a lot of the travel in Uganda tends to be business-related travel, right? When we travel, it's our companies that have said within Uganda, right? Within Uganda, yeah. And so, and those companies have HR and procurement that are getting kickbacks. They don't want to formalize anything. They want to be able to call the guy and says, the room is 1 million a night, but for you, you make it this and that. So our business was a problem for that. So now, which means that we were left competing for non-Ugandans, people who are coming into Uganda. We're competing against Booking.com, Hotels.com, TravelWhat.com. And these guys know that travel customers are very savvy, right? They know the brands, where they want to sleep in, where they want to sleep in, in the Four Seasons they want to sleep in, and they know the price. They move the brand and price. We bled to death in that business because what would Booking do? They would scrub the internet. Whatever price they find that's lower than Booking.com, they would apply dynamic pricing, whereby that every time you search for this hotel, Booking will always be cheaper because they keep scrubbing every 5 minutes and apply dynamic pricing. So if you update your pricing, but you go to Serena or you go to a specific lodge, White Waters, and say, my man, give me this price. And it's very nice pricing that no one has on the internet. Or you say, I'm gonna put in my own incentive to make sure I'm the cheapest so I can acquire so many customers. Well, within 5 minutes, Booking will scrap and will be 10% cheaper than you want. So the dynamic pricing eats into your business. This was my baby, the travel business. Yeah. So my advice would be that you have to work on the domestic. Absolutely. That is where the opportunity is. But more Ugandans are traveling. Where are they traveling? How are they traveling? And so, how do they pay? How do they want to pay? And so there's a real opportunity there. I failed at it, because I could not compete with the travel business that happens here and the global travelers with the dynamic pricing or the big guys who are deploying. If you can't compete on price, you can't win on travel.
Hi, my name is Timothy. My question is from the background that a lot of people from Jumia, when I say executives, their second acts were still in e-commerce. And if you give examples like Sam from Kapu and the rest of the team, for you, why was your second act hospitality? What's the bigger picture with regards to what are you looking at with all this expansion? And the second question is, what are some gaps in e-commerce that you look at from the Ugandan context and also broadly Like if you look at an idea, if somebody pitches it to an idea, you would say that, yeah, this is going to make it because you already saw these gaps from your experience with e-commerce. And yeah, and if you try to make a comparison between Uganda's e-commerce and Kenya, you can see that Kenya e-commerce ranks high, and in Uganda there are very few startups really going into e-commerce. What's your context around that?
Right. Well, all of Africa is full of businesses that are founded by ex-Jumia, right? It's Kenya, in London, one of our colleagues raised $200 million for their startup. Well, and I think that from 2012 onwards, that those people had the opportunity to learn different business models in different countries from different people, and but also the kind of people we recruited were already entrepreneurs. It's not surprising that Sam in Kenya has raised another $20 million, I think, about 2 weeks ago. In Rwanda, so basically they've been able to, but also maybe there's a bias, and a bias that maybe they looked more credible to potential investors, right? That if you've been able to survive in the rocket internet way of work, you can survive. Anyway, if you can survive at Jumia for 1 year, and so there's that. So everybody has done a different business model. For me, again, it's not the space, it's the application, right? I apply tech, I apply tools to all my businesses. But I'm also still invested in tech as well, in logistics, fintech, and also now, again, e-commerce. And the last part was?
The gaps in
e-commerce. The gaps, plenty. If I was, one of the things that working on now is on the green tech and the carbon markets. If I was you, if I had the time, I'd be definitely green tech all the way. It's undone, undeveloped everywhere, and especially in Africa, and definitely in Uganda. And it's not sophisticated to do because satellites are there, the metrics are there. It's Virgin Lands, and there's a lot of funding available.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
So my name is Jeremy. I work for Startup Africa. My question is, you talked about the 80% untapped market elsewhere. So my question is, what strategy would you use to approach such a highly fragmented market, especially not giving more context into, let's say, a tech startup that deals with the aggregation of farm produce, let's say. So what will be your strategy in, in the application of such a startup?
I wouldn't say that they're untapped. These people are receiving goods and services. These 80% of Ugandans who live in rural areas are receiving goods and services. However, they get them more expensively, right? And they get them, not efficiently, right? But they get them. The market has a way of serving where there's demand. So, but that inefficiency and that price opportunity is the opportunity for you, right? If you can do it cheaper, faster, better. So it's not untapped. However, basically, it means it's not efficient. If there's an inefficiency, there's a gap. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much. My name is Uzaifa. I have 2 questions. One is a continuation of the previous question. So, at Jumia, I assume you sell some cheap things. So, what is the best payment payment company, like when we're selling something with 3,000, how do you make a profit? Which company can help you to realize that? Then the second question, you are not a developer and you started StartHub, Hello Food, you started Hello Food. So doesn't it require a lot of money to do that? Can an ordinary person do it, hiring all those developers? How did you go about it?
Okay, thank you. So the first question, well, I think if you've ever done a marketplace, a marketplace means that you provide a platform that aggregates supply of the products or the services and then aggregates demand, right? So Jumia doesn't sell cheap products. Jumia aggregates vendors who have cheap products and aggregates customers who have who buy cheap products. So basically, that's the aggregation process, right? How do they make money? Remember, try to force yourself to remove Jumia from the equation. It's a marketplace. So in that marketplace, there's the buyer and the seller, both aggregated, and so the vendor or the seller must price a product in a way that once he pays the cost of order management, right? Order management means they've packaged the product and they've been able to hand it over to Jumia, and Jumia must make sure that their own order management and delivery is covered from the commission and or from the delivery fee, right? Neither of the two, if it's a marketplace, right, would list a product, right, that does not cover the order management cost. So that's how you get cheap products. On the other hand, Jumia can say that I know that I'm not going to make money on this product because the order management is high compared to what I'm getting in commission, but it's what I'm getting a lot of customers, right? And these customers then can then be converted to other product lines, right? But if you bought, for example, a phone case or phone cover at 5,000 shillings, but I know now you have a phone, right? Because otherwise you don't want to buy a Samsung phone case, you don't want to try to sell the earphones, so it could be, an acquisition opportunity as well. So then the last part, obviously tech is always one of the barriers to entry or for an entrepreneur. It's expensive to build very good tech, right? But I think it's cheaper now. The developers are becoming cheaper, but for me, it's not that you don't need to be a developer. I was never a developer, right? But I worked with people who were good at product development. And now there's products now that's off the shelf, which I don't recommend. But I would most be interested in strategic partnerships. I think Ugandans were scared of partnering. But I have many people who come to me and say, this is a good idea, but I can't tell you. I tell you from I have this good idea I want to do, I can't afford it, but if I tell anybody, they want to take the idea. My friends, an idea is not a business, right? An idea is not a business, one. But two, strategic partnerships is the cheapest and fastest way to scale a business, right? So if you're not a developer and you're a good business manager, or you're a business manager but you're not a good developer, come together, right? Don't underestimate the power of business management, finance, marketing,
And of course, we think that if you're not a developer, then you should not be in the space. No, man. A developer is only a small part of the business. So I would suggest that if you don't have the resources, strategic alliances with people who can bring that on board. It's not all it's about getting resources. You can resolve a lot of things. You can unlock so many doors just by looking for opportunities to partner with people who have the skill sets you don't have, the competence you don't have. You cannot have it all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. In case you have any question left out, you're going to share an email. So you'll send
had a
it.
question from the beginning.
So Ron, my question is about, so my name is Geoffrey. I'm the founder of Kara. And my question is really about normal businesses. I think when we get into tech, we have this world we are living in of valuations of Silicon Valley, or the typical tech crunch, fundraising driven businesses. But then you go into a normal security company and you find that, oh, okay, this business doesn't make a lot of money on paper in valuation, but it makes a lot of real money that you can actually touch. And maybe could you help draw the distinction between how to run and how tech, what good things are there in the tech business, what is a myth and needs to be dispelled, and how can we get the good things from tech and really apply them to the normal businesses like you mentioned that you're currently investing in, that you're actually building, because I feel like to some extent that's something that's increasingly becoming relevant with valuations going down and almost everyone focusing on profitability and reality, I would say.
Thank you. And congratulations on all the good things you're doing in the electric mobility. There's a few things that I don't miss, in this lingo. It's great not to hear the word EBITDA, right? Because EBITDA earnings before interest, taxes,
and amortization.
Thank you. So, yes, you're right that sometimes in the startups we live in cuckoo land, whereby we forget the principle of business. At the end of the day, it's very, very basic. Is that you buy low and you sell high. We're not talking about that you buy low valuation and you sell high valuation. That's what tech companies tend to do. The reality is that at the end of the process, that your input cost is lower than your output income, right? And this notion that it's about valuation, but valuation of what? Right? And for me, leave that for investors. Leave that for investors who have cash. And they're looking at the return on investment. So this business is small, I'm losing money, but I believe in it so much, in its ability to scale, that it has the opportunity to scale 100x. So therefore, I'm willing to risk my money to burn it this way because the upside is 100 or 1000x. Now, let me give you an example why things are different. So let's, in the real world sometimes. So let's say you build a hospital. And in this hospital, you have 100 beds that patients can be admitted to. In this hospital, you have 10 doctors, you have an operating room, you have lab room, and all the other things. You cannot admit more than 100 patients, right?
Yeah.
So let's say that this is good and you have 100 patients every night. Unless you keep increasing the price of the patient to come to your hospital, you'll be capped, right? So how do you grow that business? You can say, I want to open a second branch, right? Or I want to expand and add more rooms, right? So you build, but let's say you had, the hospital was already on 1 acre of land and there was no more land to build and the rest of the areas are built around you. So then now you have to open another hospital branch, correct?
Yes.
You buy the same equipment, you buy the same, build the same rooms, and you hire more doctors. Is that business scalable? Somewhat.
Very expensive.
It's very expensive to scale. But let's say my friend here, who's building a marketplace for travel, lodges and hotels, right? Now, he has listed all the lodges and hotels in Uganda, they're there, right? And he has built an app, it's a very good app. Now he gets the customers, right? What is his biggest cost, right? It's going to be maybe the tech, right? Because he's not building the hotels. His biggest cost is technology. Now that he has all the hotels and is getting customers, would it matter to him if he has 1 million customers? Does he need to reinvent the tech? He has built the tech. So whether it's 1 million customers or 10 customers. But let's say now he has massed out all the customers in Uganda. So he has all the customers in Uganda, he wants to go to Kenya. Does he need to build a new tech for Kenya? So his scalability is unlimited, right? So his business can grow 1000x. The hospital cannot. So when you're investing into, you see why there's a little bit of a difference. On one side, you have to be sober and smart. On the other side, you can dream a bit. You can dream. Today, Uber is losing money, right?
Yeah.
It's money losing, it's bleeding cash. There's no pathway to profitability at this point. But it has billions on their balance sheet right now. So why is that? Because the scalability of it is massive still. That you can open new markets without adding cost to it. That you can add more business lines on the app without, you can sell insurance. You can do so much. So you leave the valuation to the investors. For you build the business you can scale. And you don't want to cap your scalability. So I wouldn't say build a hospital unless you told me you have $10 million in your account.
Yeah.
But if you have 1 million, I wouldn't say build a hospital. The scalability of the 1 million is limited. But it has more sure returns. If you have $20,000, I would say build. Let's do it. The scalability of the 20 is very aggressive. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
So, in my view, when we're building our companies, it's important that we want to make sure it's scalable, right? That it's scalable cross-border, scalable across the verticals of the business. It's scalable for the customers, scalable for your vendors, right? But don't be trapped in the valuation game. Build a business you're happy with that has a pathway to making money. The valuers will do their thing. When we start off with that, we get into very bad habits, and I've done them, right? I've acquired cohorts of customers that I knew would not come back, but because Trajectory was great, yeah.
Numbers.
But it does not last. It will come tumbling down. And investors now know that. They know that. They no longer just look at the top line, man. The unit economics are equally important. Okay.